I'm just set the recording as we always do, record the event so that we can watch this then, later in the community. A small group today, that's okay. That's everyone else's fault for missing out. And I appreciate you guys chiming in. This will be a relatively short office hours, but I believe it's important to focus on, as I said, in managing inventory lot numbers. Because trust me, I have more questions about that when, we really get into the weeds of the software and people schedule webinar trainings with me and they ask, hey, biggest thing people want to focus on is either checking in, checking out clients, and that's something we've covered a lot in office hours, and it's how to effectively manage inventory. And in the end, it comes down to, a lot of times, how we use our lot numbers. And so I thought I'd focus today on how to effectively use them and maybe dispel any questions or concerns that are out there. So without further ado, let me go ahead and do a screen share. So you should now see my Better Software calendar here. And let me go ahead and just get rid of the bookmark bar here for a little bit more room. Perfect. Okay. So before we begin, on inventory lot numbers, I'd like to just briefly show you one other enhancement we added this week, and it was the ability to filter Rabies reports by cities. And again, depending on where you live, you may have a government agency that doesn't ask for anything, but we have many clients that it'll go down to the city level. So they'll say, just because you submit your report for everything you've done in your clinic, but you may have clients from 4 or 5 different cities, and depending on where you live, each city may require that report too. So to make it a little easier to filter that, we just added that by city filter. So if I come to patients, and then I click on the Rabies summary report, and I'm going to grab a larger date range here, just so we see something, and I'll take, let's say, up to last year here. And by the way, you can, again, first of all, filter by dog, cat, or other species. And then if you notice here, by city. And I'm going to take, I live in San Francisco. So let's just say San Francisco wanted to know, hey, last year, what were the rabies vaccines that were administered? And I go ahead and I can say, hey, here we go, right? And these are for all clients that all lived in essentially the city of San Francisco. And so just it's a very small enhancement, but significant in the sense that a lot of our cities require this this level of granularity when reporting, okay? I'm going to briefly mute some of the mics there. Sorry, let me mute the mic. So, because we're picking up background noise there. Okay. Thank you. So please feel free to use the chat option to send in questions. Now I'm going to jump over to inventory here, and specifically focusing on how lot numbers work. And I did some research last night into the items I have here in my demo account, and I'm going to use one to demonstrate, I guess, the breadth of how lot numbers are applied. So I happen to have, this one had a great example. Clavamox tabs, 62.5 milligrams. So I'm going to come to here, and as a basic rule, if whatever possible, apply lot numbers, right? When you accept a purchase, right? So you can either enter a purchase order through our the inventory integration with MWI and Patterson, or as most clinics do, if it's a small purchase or if it's a different supplier, we'll just go ahead and enter the purchase here, right? And when doing so, you have the option to enter a lot number, okay? Now, in an ideal world, you should always do this. Why? Because it just makes inventory tracking more precise, and thus in the end, most likely more profitable to your clinic. Now, a lot of clinics though, right, you only have so much time to manage everything. So at the very least, enter lot numbers for items that can expire, right? Or if you're not going to do lot numbers at all, at least enter expiration dates for items. If you're not going to do either, I think you're not operating the practice as efficiently as possible, because a lot of lot numbers that will then just expire, even if you don't have them in the software, right? And then at the end of the year with taxes, for example, if product merchandise that is written off, that can be deducted. It helps having accurate records. So to repeat, if possible, always enter a lot number. If you have only going to do it some of the time, do it for items that can expire, such as prescriptions that are perishable. And if you're not going to enter lot numbers, at the very least, the last recourse, just enter expiration dates. I'm going to show you how that plays out then. Okay. So I have an item here that we've been using in this demo account for probably over 4 years now. And I'm going to view the purchases. And every purchase has the ability to have a lot number or an expiration date. Now, this just happens to be a perfect example just because a lot of us have used this during trainings and demos. As you can see, my colleague Sagi, that's me, Matt, Jeff, right? If I go all the way to here, or let's see on page 2, Trevor, many of you might remember him. He's a former colleague of mine. So we have 4 different staff members having entered records on this. And sometimes they're very complete, right? Lot number, right? Expiration date. And you can see the balance remaining on items, okay? And if I come over to here, right? 0 balance. Here one has 10 tablets remaining, but it's expired. Some of these have 0 tablets remaining because they have expired, and maybe I've gone ahead and taken care of made an adjustment to take care of this because I had an expiration alert. But so we have all kinds of examples going on here. Now, let's go to a sample patient and show you how this works in real life. And go to my boy Azrael here from the Smurfs. I'm going to come to here, and we're just going to add that same item to Clavamox tabs. New record, medical record. Let's clear out those Clavamox tabs. And there they are right here, 62.5 milligrams, and we're going to come forward. And you'll see here, it's pulling from a lot. It says 133 tablets remaining. Okay. Now, if I click here, it'll show all other available lot numbers from which we can pull. Now, people always ask me, where is this coming from? What are you deciding to pull from? Well, it's a first in, first out. And so the software is going to pull then from what it's going to expire the earliest. In this case, here are 4 options with expirations, and this one being July 10th, the earliest. But before then, it's going to pull from lot numbers that don't have expiration dates because it's assuming, well, gosh, these must expire even earlier. It's just the software option. Now, let's come back to here and see, hey, where's that 133 coming from? Okay. If I start on page 1 here, I look for the balance remaining. Oh, I don't see anything here. I don't see 133. I go to here. Here is one at 130. So it's pulling from this one first. Okay. You can't pull from these because these have no balance. This has a negative balance. Okay. So it's not going to pull from here. And I'll explain how we got a negative balance there in a moment. And then it's going to pull. You're like saying, hey, wait, this one has 10 tablets. Well, this is expired. So the software is not going to let you pull from an expired lot number, even though there happen to be 10 remaining. Now, if I manage my inventory properly, I'll make an adjustment, and I will, for example, I will make an adjustment and say, hey, the real balance here remaining, adjust balance here. The real balance remaining is 0, and it's because they expired, and then this wouldn't have a remaining balance, but I left it there for the demo purposes. So we come back to here, and we're going to see, hey, the 133, that is the first option the software will pull from. Then it's going to pull from the one with 210, 500, 630, and so on. And as you can see, if I come to here, here's the one with 210, 500, 630, 225. It's a first in, first out process. Then it's going to pull from those with expiration dates. It has to make a decision somewhere where it's going to pull from. As you can see, this is why consistently adding expiration dates is beneficial, because, this one with 210, maybe it should be pulled after this one here, right? The one that expires in July. Software doesn't know this, though. It has to make an assumption somewhere. So good news is you can always go back and edit these, right? If you see in your inventory, hey, we're missing lot numbers or expiration dates, let's go back and just enter those expiration dates. And that way, then the software is always going to pull from the right source. Now, by the way, should there have been, let's say I had opted to put 200 tablets in here, a ridiculously high prescription order. It will pull from the 133, and then it'll pull the remaining 67 from, this one, the 210. So a veteran can pull from multiple lot numbers too. I'm going to pause very quickly and see if there are any questions. I want to make sure this made sense. It's straightforward when you see it like this. Many people, though, don't think of it this way. Just this is to show how lot numbers actually work within Vetter. Okay. Now, coming back to here to show a couple cleanup options. When making a general cleanup of inventory, if you have entered lot numbers, it becomes much easier to do things when making an adjustment. So if I come to here and I say, hey, for example, this order here, lot number 12345, it is expired, okay? And this will then also show up on my inventory dashboard here. So look here, Clavamox tabs, here it is right here. There's 10 remaining, right? It's expiring. I go to the order. How do I make this adjustment? How do I make this adjustment? Well, let's jump to here, the Clavamox tabs, right? I look at my purchase history, and this is the ideal way to make adjustments. And I come to here, and I see it here. And I go ahead, I just simply put adjust balance. Notice our current balance, the background is 380. Actual balance of this should be 0. Why? Because these have expired. And I do this. Now we're balanced down to 370. Expirations are at 0. The balance is at 0. Now, in some cases, you're saying, hey, probably asking, how did this get to be -9 balance? And this one get to be -152. Well, what happens is when people come in, depending on how many were on hand when purchases were made, a lot of clinics just make a general adjustment because they may not have recorded lot numbers. And let's come to here, let's just say they'll do a biannual count and say, current balance, 370. Somebody does a count and says, Yo, boss, I find only 319 on hand. And because they can't pin tie them to a specific lot number, they're just going to come here and say, new adjustment. They're going to make a general adjustment. They'll say 319. And then they'll put down clinic use, discarded, what have you. Well, what happens now is, yeah, there'll be 319 remaining. The software is going to then have to pull those from somewhere. It's saying to itself, well, what lot numbers are they pulling these from? And it's going to start making assumptions. And it's going to pull from the ones that are remaining. It'll pull from here at 133, even though it may not be from this amount. And so what happened is if people had done this, people have done this in the past, some of my colleagues, they probably just came here during a demo, made a quick general adjustment. And so the software had to pull from wherever it could. And they were maybe not have been careful, and thus you can get a negative balance. This might have been the only one on hand, right? So as you can see, they only purchased one quantity, but the software had to pull from somewhere when a general adjustment was made, and you have a minus 152. This is, so sometimes you may have an option. You may only be able to do a general adjustment. So be it. But do understand that if lot numbers are involved, it's going to pull it from somewhere to make this even. But ideally, we come in here and we have a lot number, and then we edit the adjustment accordingly. Okay. It seems very straightforward when I do it this way, but believe me that most clinics, have some trouble with this, and that's okay. Let me pause and see if there's any questions. So you guys probably get this all. And so let me ask if there are any questions right now. Like I said, it's going to be a relatively short office hours, but I wanted to cover this. Again, to repeat, it's going to pull in order, right, of first in, first out, right? And it's going to operate that items without expiration dates. It's going to pull from those first because it assumes they're expiring first. Items that have an expiration date, at least it's something concrete the software can work with, right? So it'll put those then in the list like it did here. All right. And then moving forward, as you manage your inventory, you can still always go back and enter a lot number by editing the item, right? Or at the very least an expiration date. If you're not able to do that, and then have to make general adjustments, you adjust here. Maybe you bought a new client. Maybe, this happens most likely. Scenario for this is when, let's say you've come out of an inventory migration, or say somebody purchases a new clinic, right? And they inherit stuff and they don't have the old sales history on every item. And they go in and say, well, there's 352. I don't have time to go through the weeds through these old records. So then you make a general adjustment here. But once you're up and running, using Vetter, managing the process, use this option right here to adjust the balance and thus keep things that are as accurate as possible. And then as a final check, if you want to do things, hey, we have 370 on hand. I can always then come to reports. And under reports here, inventory summary, and I can check the balance on hand. And if I come here, and this, by the way, also gives me a chance to show off that tip of the week. A lot of people write back about this. When faced with a large list like this, and I guess I could scan for Clavamox, use the Command F function. And depending on whether you're on a Mac, it's Command plus F at the same time, or you're on a PC, it's Control plus F. All I do is I come to here, I hit Command F, and I can type in whatever I want. And this is universal to pretty much all softwares, or should be at least. And I come to Clavamox, right? And I can either use the up-down arrow to have it take me down, right? Or I can just scroll down to where it's highlighted. Hey, here it is, 62.5 milligrams. Here's my balance, 370, which matches the balance on hand. And so this was a good way to also include the tip of the week. I'm going to check really quickly if there are any other questions. No, I appreciate that. Just see if there's anything, please let me know. Other than that, I apologize again for having to move it to Thursday, but yours truly managed, like I said, hurt himself and wasn't moving too well. So I appreciate everyone's patience, and I will go ahead and finish the recording here, post it up on the customer community for managing lot numbers. Thank you again, everybody, for your time. And if you have any follow-up questions, just shoot me an email, matt@vettersoftware.com, or give me a call. Thank you very much, and I hope to talk to you guys next week. Great. Take care. Bye-bye.